feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Thursday morning. It's December 4th, and coming up on today's show, I will be joined by Britt Robson from Min-Post. It's been a couple weeks since Britt and I have done a pod, so looking forward to getting into not only the New Orleans game with Britt, but also on some, trends that have developed over the last few weeks since Britt and I spoke. Like I said, we're recording this one on Thursday morning prior to the Wolves' second game out here in New Orleans this evening. So if you're listening to this on Friday or over the weekend and something significant happened in round 2 of Wolves Pelicans, know that we recorded this beforehand. So whatever does go down tonight in that second matchup of this little series, Chris Hine and I will discuss immediately after the game this evening as well, because I am still here in New Orleans for the trip. But before we get started, let's get Britt in here. Before we get started, we will do a little prize picks segment, because trips like this to cover these games on the road would not be possible without sponsors. And I've got 2 quick picks for you from this game. I'm going to go with a Julius Randle bounce back game. I think he will be fed involvement in this one, and I don't think the Pelicans really have a one-on-one matchup for him. I think that last game was more just out of rhythm for him. So give me more than 21.5 points for Randle in this game. And then how about Derek Queen? Wolves couldn't really stop him in game 1 either. Let's do more than 15.5 points in this game for Queen as well. Fun thing to do, play for $5. Should just be something fun doing while you're watching the games. There's always something going on at Prize Picks, for the Wolves, but also for the NFL and any other sport. And you can play in Minnesota. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account and you would like to play, all you have to do is enter the promo code Dane when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. It's prizepicks.com. Download the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane when you create your account. All right, let's talk about this very confusing team with what I would expect to be a little bit of a prickly Britt Robson this morning. Let's go. All right, we are now joined by Britt Robson. Hi, Britt. How are you?
I'm good.
You ready to jump into this?
Absolutely.
So I thought the place that we would start with is kind of the team naming out loud some of the things that we've been, seeing with our eyes over the course of the season of fluctuating effort over the course of time. Not totally at the cost of success, of wins and losses, or where they rank offensively and defensively. And don't worry, listeners, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to the Wolves being, top 10 on both sides of the ball, and having an incredible, last 6 games. I think he's averaging 38, 5, and 5 over the last 6 games, which is nuts, especially given the way he's being guarded. But the Wolves players, Ant, Finch, talking about this team kind of waiting around for the playoffs and kind of fast forwarding there, I think is the most relevant topic right now, because it makes most everything else they're doing feel a little bit trivial, right? Like, without the consistent input of energy, whatever the output is, it's just going to kind of be volatile there. It makes pockets of games feel a little bit irrelevant. It can make numbers at times feel a little bit irrelevant. So I do want to start there, Britt, but I want to start with I thought Ant was pretty transparent in the locker room after the first Pelicans game. We're recording this Thursday morning before the second Pelicans matchup. But here's Ant in the locker room after the overtime win on Tuesday night.
This time of the day, he was like, we can't just wait for the playoffs to start playing defense. I think I'm really not worried about it once we get to where we're trying to get to, but it's now when it's super important. It seemed like we don't want to play these games. We just want to fast forward the season to the playoffs and then play all out defense and play super hard. But it just don't work like that. We got to be ready to play on any given night, and it starts with me. I came out kind of sluggish, but I'll be better next game.
Does it feel like given your experience with the playoffs and turning it up in the playoffs, how important is it to develop habits?
It's super important, because in the playoffs you can't turn it on and off. It's kind of hard to, because the other team is just as good or might be better. Certain teams you can choose when to do that, because you still got enough talent and power on the bench, and firepower to combat that. But in the playoffs, you can't do that. So it's super important to try to start those trends now. Like I said, of course it's tough, man, because like it's a collective thing. Like we all got to be on the same page. And it starts with me. I got to be ready to play every possession on defense, which is also tough, but I got to be in shape for that.
Does it feel like, I mean, what has that physically felt like this year? I mean, you're on the ball more and you're on the ball on offense.
A lot of steps. A lot of late.
Do they show you numbers on that stuff, or?
Nah, they don't show me the numbers. Nah, a lot of like late session treatments at 12 in the morning with D Hines. Taking care of my body is like the number one priority right now because it's like I'm getting banged up all game. They beat me up all night. They pick me up full court. Then I got a guard. So just trying to take care of my body and get enough sleep.
But it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
So Brett, what do you make of that and just kind of this overall trend?
Well, as always, I admire the honesty. I think that Ant always tries to give you an unfiltered view of the way he sees it. It's easier to do after a win. It's easier to do when he's just played basically 40 plus minutes and scored 40 plus points and dragged his team out of the mire more than once during that game. But even when things are tough, Ant usually stands up and says things, whether it's a day later or whatever. I don't begrudge him anything as far as what he has to do on this team to make it successful right now. And I don't begrudge him the honesty and the perspective. It's very, very helpful because it kind of confirms what I've been feeling about this team. But obviously I have a more negative slant on it. Not putting, they want to jump ahead to the playoffs. Yeah, they don't want to put in the work. I mean, what the regular season is putting in the work so that you are ready to play playoff basketball. I mean, that's one of the things I don't like about this in-season tournament bullshit is like you're supposed to be competing at a high level. It's December. People are working hard on their games. And I think it's interesting that a lot of times the people who are winning these, cups are not around very long in April and May. It is a process. And I think that OKC is basically showing everybody that there doesn't have to be a hangover from a championship. They've suffered injuries. They've gone through a gauntlet of things. They get everybody's best game every night because, they've only lost one game out of 22 or 23. And they come at you every night the same way. That consistency of effort and execution, anybody who's watching the Wolves this year knows that is very, very gapingly missing. There are huge holes in their periods of dysfunction where they're either not trying hard enough or not executing well enough. And when you give up 43 points to the 26th ranked offense after going up 9, that's just shameful. And
the second quarter you're talking about.
Yeah, the second quarter of Tuesday night's Tuesday night's game. The context matters here. The previous week, they blew 2 games. I don't like to use the word the choke, but it was very clearly a team that got nervous and overreacted and made mistakes down the stretch. And those were 2 glaring losses. Then a pretty well-played game against OKC began to pull them up and kind of get rid of that stank. Then they had 2 wins against 2 pretty good teams. And it happened by getting better as the game went on. And the peak of their season thus far, in my opinion, was the last 17 minutes or so of the game against the Spurs that had won 5 or 6. I know they don't have Wemby and Castle, but they're a really good team. They're still ahead of the Wolves in the standings despite the loss. And that was glorious basketball. And that's what I spent the first half of my column writing about that, because it was nice to be able to just offer unbridled praise and unbridled joy about a team I cover. I seek to do that. And this was finally an opportunity to do that. I mean, yeah, you can praise Ant and Randall and other people individually, but how often have we been able to say, wow, did you see how those 5 players performed going up and down the court on both sides of the court? It was unique, and it was unique in game 20. So that's a troubling sign. And so the second half of the column kind of went to the idea of what is the blueprint here? And one of the things that has to be in the blueprint is character. One of the things that has to be happening now is a recognition that when you put in the work and begin to get a rhythm and establish what you do well and then repeat it over and over again, then the work is fun. I mean, OKC has fun. Teams that are successful on a regular basis have fun. The Timberwolves did not have fun against the Pels. They spent 2.5 quarters in overtime basically just trying to survive against a bad team.
And I'll throw in, Britt, like anecdotally, just being in the locker room afterwards too, it was the feeling of survival and like, oh, okay, at least it didn't go the other way. At least it wasn't Phoenix again. At least it wasn't that. It wasn't like negative, but it was.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It was.
Yep.
It wasn't.
And I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I know Chris reported in the Strib the other day that Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon, were having a fine old time.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point being, my favorite Wolves teams of the last decade have been the Vando, Pat Bev, fly around team with a high wall, coming out of the blue to win like 46 games, I think. Yeah. And then 2 years ago, that Rudy Defensive of the Year, Nas Sixth Man of the Year, Mike Conley, just some great things. Jaden making all the NBA defense. That was another team that came out at halftime and just squelched you on defense. And it was fun, and everybody had fun. The people who covered it had fun. The people doing it had fun. Last year was a little bit more checkered, but then you thought, wow, they really kind of overachieved at the end. Yeah, they caught some breaks in the postseason, but it wasn't as much of like, oh, this team is a joy to watch. It was this team is being resourceful and figuring it out and really kind of pulling a rabbit out of its hat, which is good, but doesn't match the joy we saw in the Vando Pat Bev team, nor the team where, Rudy basically ran the top-rated defense in the NBA by a wide margin. This season is beginning to feel like the season after the Cat Rudy combination, was first implemented, or some of last season, in terms of they're not a bad basketball team. In fact, many times they're a good basketball team, but they are not a reliable basketball team yet. And it just really gives the lie to all that preseason bullshit about how they were going to be ready on day one. We've got continuity. We know who we are. We're not going to let it slip. We're going to have these dinners where everybody gets pointed to and what are you going to do to make this happen? And da-da. And then they come out and regularly don't want to put in the work. You see it. They don't want to put in the work. And that falls on the coach. That falls on the leaders of the team. That falls on the people coming off the bench who are expected to be better than they have been. It is a team-wide malaise, and it needs to stop because the schedule is going to get a lot harder after Christmas.
So, agreed, 2 years ago, 23-24, fun. They were having fun. They were successful. You could see it on a night-to-night basis. And then you referenced last season at the end, right? That last 21 games of the season where they went 17-4, same sort of thing, fun, right? Yep. Okay, so that's an interesting point, right? That was 21 games. They went 17-4 in that time. The Wolves are currently, as we record this, 21 games into the season, and they're 13-8. And just for the record, I'm on your side here.
I am. This is, I like where you're going here.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
just.
it's only a 4-game difference.
It's only a 4-game difference. The numbers are good.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of the schedule that the Wolves have had has been easy, but so too was the final 21 games of last season.
Absolutely.
That'd actually be interesting to look at. It might have even been easier the last 21 games this season that it's been these first 20. I don't know, whatever. Equally kind of easy.
Exactly.
So I don't know. Maybe it's just out of like self-preservation of my own mind of trying to find like something in between these two sides. Is I am just going back to the numbers and I'm looking at 17-4 versus 13-8. 13-8 isn't that bad. They're 5th on offense, 12th on defense. They dropped a lot on defense after that last game to the Pelicans, but prior to that, they were like one of 3 teams in the league who was top 10
Right. Yep.
on both sides of the ball. And so I think everything you are saying, everything Ant is saying, everything Finch is saying about this team not being fully locked in and consistent in that way is true. But it is also, the numbers are also true here as well, that this has been a well above average team despite their volatility, which doesn't win you anything right now. You don't get an award for that, but I think it at least opens up the idea of a greener pasture ahead, that with a greater consistency to effort and energy as the input, that you could have an output somewhere along the line over the course of this season that makes you feel like you believe in this team a little bit more come the playoffs, come a playoff push, maybe come the spring.
I agree.
And those sort of things. So I want to at least leave that open in my mind as a possibility, because the numbers very much suggest it is a possibility.
And that is precisely why I spent the second half of the column I wrote this week talking about how do you generate half-court offense? Where does it come from, and how does it work? What is your bench production going to be like? How do you win games as the season gets tougher? What is repeatable and reliable? And that is, that the first 10 games of the season, they were top 6 on offense and bottom 15 or, whatever on defense. 10. And then they flipped it, and they were the exact difference with the same record, 6-4 both times. But it gives you a really, on the one hand, you could say, wow, they have great versatility. They can beat you with defense or they can beat you with offense. But as things begin to move into the season and people start, where the cream starts to rise to the top, whatever cliche you want to use, the better teams begin to get separation because they figure things out. This team seems like it's complicating its figuring out process. I mean, I don't know. Can you rely on 2 ISO heavy players to develop a really good, reliable offense? Obviously, sometimes you can when they are as capable as Ant and Julius Randle. But it isn't the same as what we saw in that fourth quarter against San Antonio, where you're moving the ball, people are flying around. And I got to tell you, I didn't play very long in basketball in terms of levels, but anybody who's played basketball knows when you're playing as a team and you're going up and down the floor, you play better because you're having a better time. And, the Wolves their pace in wins is 101.49. That's would be 13th right now in the NBA. Their pace in losses is 99.46, which would be 26th in pace. They're better when they're having a higher pace. And Finch went into that New Orleans game saying, run all the time, even though New Orleans runs. And, the previous game against the Spurs, run all the time. It is because quick decisions are helpful to this team, because teams don't load up. They don't load up on Randle. They don't load up on Ant. When those things happen, those guys really have to work hard, and it gets more difficult. and give him credit for admitting that he's getting beat up all the time and that it's tough. And that I think that's a lot of his ire toward the officials, which is always a troubling sign when Ant's starting to, bait the refs, is that he's getting worn down.
Mm-hmm.
And he's getting frustrated. If I'm the opposing defense, I'm loving the idea that Ant is spending a lot of time begging for foul calls.
I'd add Julius to that too.
Oh, absolutely. Julius, we can get into Julius. Julius's defense is yin and yang. He can be very good and he can be just out and out. Like, what is this guy doing on the court?
What I'm saying is like tied to energy or tied to physicality or physically how they're feeling in the moment. As Ant said, like beat up, like you're right. Like we've seen that a million times, oh my gosh, just the second time in a row I went to the basket, didn't get a foul call. There's something exhausting about that. I'm going to drop my focus for 4 seconds here. Right. And say it to the official. And sure enough, his guy runs down the floor, gets an open three.
Right.
And then, with Julius too, I don't think his is as much like physically getting hit. Like that dude's just a tank, like that doesn't seem to bother him.
Contact is his game, right?
Yeah, but I do think, I don't know, I've just been thinking about this since the last game, just general fatigue of, minutes played, busy schedule, whatever. It was just very surprising, body language wise to watch Julius in that game. As soon as the game ended, overtime, I was right behind the bench. It was final buzzer goes, can't even be 10 seconds. And Julius is into the tunnel, back into the locker room. We do the interview with him afterwards. I mean, the fewest words he's ever given, in an interview. And he talked a little bit about like some frustration with involvement. I don't know if that means him involving himself or his teammates involving him. But as I reflected on that, thought about it, and I thought about last season with Julius too, it was kind of around this time of the year where I remember that Golden State game. That one always really stands out to me, which is kind of a low point of the season for the Wolves. And Julius kind of stormed out of the locker room afterwards, was frustrated, wanting to go deal with whatever he was feeling alone, which that's not wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong.
As a matter of fact, I see it as a hopeful sign that if he's getting frustrated, that means he wants to win.
Yeah.
And that means that he's probably mad at himself. He may be mad at his teammates, maybe mad at the coach. But the point being is
my point is tired. That is my just fatigue, just personal, whatever, just the fatigue of the couple months of the season of go. Like that's what I'm saying with the Ant, like the Ant, as he said to us. Right. So we know what this is. The thing with Ant is, getting beat up, and that's what the game does. I don't know if it is for sure with Julius, but body language reading, whatever, and comparing it to the first 5-8 games of the season when Julius was one of the best players in the NBA. One title.
You could even extend that out to like 15 or 12 games.
Right. Yeah. I think the physical elements are beginning to weigh on the top two players. And to your point about this team being offensively so isolation centric on the top two players, you're carrying more weight 21 games into the season than best player A and best player B are on a more egalitarian offensive type team, plus this group is asking more from them defensively this season, Ant specifically, right? More on ball, those sort of things. There is a greater weight of effort required from these two guys. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Falling Knife Brewing Company. Shout out to Falling Knife owner Dan Herman for the New Orleans lunch recommendation yesterday. I think that was literally the best sandwich I've ever had. Verta Marte No joke. Highly recommend if you're ever out in New Orleans. But let me tell you about what is going on over at Falling Knife this week. One good way to just, if you want to be in tune as to what's going on at Falling Knife, follow them on Instagram. They put a schedule up of all their events every week. Obviously, one thing you always know that's happening is the Wolves games are on there. Wolves Pels will be on at Falling Knife this evening. But also on Thursdays, they do the initials game trivia. That's every Thursday. So if you're in the tap room tonight, that'll be going on as well. Obviously, this Saturday, we've got Wolves Clippers, another time to get in there. And Niverland is doing a live podcast on Sunday night at Falling Knife that you can purchase tickets for. Again, as always, supporting these sponsors is what makes this show happen. And with Falling Knife, there is a variety of ways you can support, including just buying their beer, or I suppose our beer. I have been told that Second Apron, the beer we partnered with them on, is almost out of stock. So if you've been waiting to get some, now is the time to head to the tap room to grab some, or to your local liquor store to buy a pack. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis.
I think it really bears noting that less ISO and more ball movement is going to really engage Dante DiVincenzo and Naz Reid, who are two guys who are the two most capable players of taking the load off of Ant and Julius's shoulders. And when those guys are in a groove and they're moving around and they're moving without the ball, Jaden McDaniels is also obviously a factor in this, but it's a different kind of factor. He can't space the floor quite as well. He doesn't have that. He's not a catalytic, player. I called Naz and DDV spree seekers the other day. I mean, they're looking to get off on sprees. They're looking to get off on these kinetic runs. And they gravitate toward that. They want to sniff it out, and that is somewhat at odds with this. Take the air out of the ball and counter the double teams, draw the crowd, and kick it. That's fine to do if the shot clock is at 18. If the shot clock's at 7, it's a whole different game, and that's one of the things I've noticed. When the Wolves are getting into their offense early and making quick decisions and people are moving around, it's not going to be the old Finch catechism of move the ball, move without the ball, and make quick decisions, because you are going to have those two ISO guys. And when I asked Finch about, the pace and everything at one time, he just said, those two guys are, really confident in themselves, and I trust them to make good decisions. I mean, Finch will let those two guys ride the ISO train because he is a guy who prefers a happy locker room over perfect X's and O's. And it's held him in good stead thus far. You can question it to some extent this year just because of the things we've been talking about. But as you say, the numbers are not bad, and the potential for things to be tweaked a little bit and to get on track are also there. But again, it has to be, and this has been an ongoing issue. It's been an ongoing issue. People like to say because of Finch's tenure, it's been an ongoing Wolves issue for a long, long time. When they were bad, when they were good, with few exceptions like the 2 years I talked about, the 03-04 season. There are obviously seasons, but they sometimes play down to the level of their opponent, or worse, under-regard their opponent and mail in an effort. And we definitely saw the mail-in variety against the Pels. And that is something that it is up to the leadership, primarily the coach, but also Ant and Randall, I would imagine, and maybe Mike Conley, addressing that so that this doesn't keep happening, because it matters in the standings, it matters in the spring when the more momentum you have, the more you can push your vehicle while you're going downhill, the more you're going to have it easier when you go uphill later on.
I try to ask Finch every 20 games about the last 20 games.
Right.
been doing that for a few years now. I asked him about the offense, and I think you and I are somewhat aligned on the what is the sustainability of an isolation centric offensive team, and I do just think it's worth noting that I don't think Finch has the same trepidations that you and I do, and I'll just play this clip, just kind of about the offense. I think is highlights that.
I mean, we're really hard to guard when we do the right thing over and over and over again. And, we've had a lot of good periods of play there. I think we've been in a lot of high assist games, for sure. And we're doing a lot of things that we talked about doing in the areas of growth, whether it be playing a little bit quicker, finding the right play a little bit better, it just kind of leads to really good shooting from everybody when you can see that.
So that's not wrong,
Right.
they're fifth in offense.
Okay.
They're fifth in offense. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
That's not a ringing endorsement. I think that Finch has made his peace with what he has. Remember the catechism coming in: move the ball, move without the ball, make quick decisions. He's lucky to get 2 out of 3, often gets 1 out of 3, rarely gets 3 out of 3 on that equation. But he understands. I mean, he did not have to have Julius Randle on the roster this year. He obviously loves Julius Randle and vice versa. That has been a very synergistic relationship for the team and each of them in terms of what's happened. It remains to be seen what the ceiling of that is, but he has decided that the way to complement Ant without a genuine point guard is to have another heliocentric playmaker that can take the load off. And I just think he's come to peace with it. He's made that decision at some point in time, and now he is comfortable in that decision. I would not say it's the way he wants to play. I would say it's the way he's decided that it will be the way that this particular roster and collection of talents can move to the greatest heights on offense. And I think if he's right, that's a problem, because I do think teams that play with a more dynamic, involved 5 offense have a better chance. And I know that flies in the face, by the way, of what used to be old playoff orthodoxy, that you have ISOs, you slow the pace, you pound the ball. I just think the modern NBA has moved beyond that. So.
Yeah, I do. But it's not like this. It can't work.
No. It is working. I mean, working in quotes, but I mean, it is working. Right. The Timberwolves are like 6th in the West. They would avoid the play-in and play the 3 seed, whoever that is right now. Maybe Houston. I don't know. Maybe Denver. Right. But and they're going to have a lot of tough games coming up because they have played some cupcakes. But they have evolved through every season that Finch has had them. They have come together, and
I guess that's just what I'm holding to,
Well, I mean, and whenever I talk with, people within the, not necessarily people who are into the decision-making process on the team, but people who follow the team on a regular basis, people in the media, Twins media, Wolves media that are in our beat group, and just other people, longtime fans, whatever, they say, well, Finch figures it out. And that's happened, in a very significant way a few times. This
feels different to you?
I just feel like I think the variation on Rudy and Mike makes that a little harder. I think that Mike Conley continues to maximize what he can give you, and that is less than it used to be. I admire the way he rings out a lot of value, but when he's bad, he's bad. And when Rudy is bad in his own inimitable way, that's a hurdle all of a sudden. And that happens. Another reason why Finch probably likes ISO ball is that you can't have a 5-man fly around if Rudy Gobert is on the court. That is one of the most dramatic things that happened in San Antonio. I mean, against San Antonio, is you had 5 guys moving and passing, and it was silk. And, Rudy is the burlap in that silk bag, I mean, he's the guy who rubs against the grain, and he's worth it because of what he can provide on defense, but it's not a two-way player. And Randall many times is not a two-way player. He's gotten better at it on defense. Jalen Clark, I know you and I have this conversation. I think he's not a two-way player, although he maximizes himself. But the point being, the complete beautiful basketball is serendipitous now rather than automatic. Right. And the more you can make it automatic, I think the better chance you have of making noise in the spring.
You bring up Mike and Rudy. It is interesting how they've lost their protection. They're like insulation of role,
right.
Those two in previous seasons were protected in a similar way to how Julius was protected in that last game, right? Where Julius had 8 points in regulation and was clearly struggling in that game, was not in any rhythm, but consistently as time came, Finch went back to him, and he still maintained his role, kind of irrelevant of what his production was in that very micro pocket of time, right? And Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert used to be protected in that same sort of way, and they were going to get what they were going to get. They had that trust of the role, and it's interesting to see that change. And it's interesting that Rudy, it started to change too.
Yeah.
Mike, we get it, right? It's right. 38. The protection was stripped away when he lost his starting job, and we saw that, there was going to be games where he wasn't even going to play 15 minutes. You go, okay,
right.
This is different. No protections there anymore. And really in the last maybe couple weeks, it feels like some of that protection has been removed from Rudy as well. And maybe some of that is, okay, Nas is back. He's playing better. And that's the direct corollary right there. Maybe with Mike, it's the same thing of okay, we want more Dante. We want Ant on ball more. We want Julius on ball more, those sort of things. There's reasons behind the loss of the protection outside of age. It's a very big difference. It's a very big difference with this team, certainly compared to two seasons ago. I find that piece a little interesting.
First of all, I think that's very insightful. I also think I go back to Flip Saunders' definition of chemistry, which I always mention, which is a reliable and accurate pecking order. And I think one of the problems this team has right now is we don't know where to slot Rudy and Mike into the pecking order. We don't know where Julius fits in the pecking order relative to Rudy, for example. Those are two very, very different variables, and who you quote unquote favor. And that's right. A very nebulous way, it's hard you don't favor, but it comes out. But how Julius and Rudy are allowed to have what they do impact the team's personality is important. It's an important distinction. And I don't know where the choices are in that. I know that it goes game to game. And one of the things that makes this team interesting going forward probably is seeing if, in fact, they are going to use variety and versatility of strengths to pull wins out rather than rely on a single identity. Because if they are going to do that, that's either going to be a masterful job by Finch and a real testimonial to the player's adaptability, or it's going to look ugly. And I think that they'll probably, it's not experimenting, but I think they will try to match up their best advantages from game to game and hopefully see something that indicates that this dominant virtue is particularly strong and that we can lean into that more. But it's crazy that you've got this team that went to the conference finals 2 seasons in a row. And here we are, over a quarter of the season gone, and we're not really sure, what their bankability is, other than a superstar who is performing, as well as he has, ever.
Today's show is brought to you by Harry's. Very excited to have Harry's on board with us for the holiday season, because these are the razors I actually use and have used for years. I remember shopping for razors used to be the worst. Not only were they too expensive, but it was also a process to go to the store and buy the razors. And they never seemed to last, which led to a dull razor, which led to razor burn. My first reaction when using Harry's was, oh, okay, this is what shaving is supposed to feel like. With Harry's Plus, you get a barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades. Each blade is honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without tugging. And I think the best part of Harry's might be how affordable it is. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany, so there's no outsourcing, no middlemen. Why pay $30 for refills when Harry's gives you better blades for a fraction of the cost? For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/DaneMoore. The set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/DaneMoore to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. So please support our show and tell them we sent you. Today's show is also brought to you by Storyworth Memoirs. They're back this week, and we're excited to have Storyworth back as a holiday season gift option for your parents or loved ones. I think if you're around my age, this is a great gift to give your parents. The idea behind Storyworth is uncovering stories you didn't know about your loved one. So how this works is each week Storyworth emails a loved one a memory-provoking question that you get to choose. Questions like, what are your favorite toys as a child? What are you most proud of? And all your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story. Then after a year, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book. Photos are printed in color, and it will be a treasure your loved one and you will be able to share and revisit for generations. Customers love Storyworth. They've printed over 1 million books and preserved 35 million family stories since their founding 13 years ago. They also have over 48,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. I am going to use Storyworth this holiday season. I think you should too. Give your loved ones a unique keepsake you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth Memoirs. Right now, save $10 or more during their holiday sale when you go to storyworth.com/DaneMoore. That's storyworth.com/DaneMoore to save $10 or more on your order. Yeah, that's where I want to go next. The top of the pecking order is clearly defined.
Yeah.
And one thing I would note too to people is that 2 seasons ago, that was not the case.
Right.
Like there was, Ant was the best player on the team 2 years ago, but culturally,
Rudy was the most important.
Well, Cat was on the team. And
Yeah,
Cat had been on
Rudy
the team
was the most important player on that team, I think.
Sure. Rudy might have been the most important player.
Right.
Cat was on the team. Ant was totally cool with being like, yo, it's Cat's team. He's been the and all with the undertone of like Ant's the best player. Obviously, we all know that watching the game. But that was 100 games ago, 103 games ago, right? That's not that long ago that there was this big difference. And now you look at the last game, 44 points for Ant and 46 minutes or whatever it is that he played in that game. And you have a completely different style of pecking order in that way. And it's the evolution. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like that was going to come with an Anthony Edwards team at some point. It is just like here, and I just, it's leading to insane scoring, insane scoring. Last 6 games, 38 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists per game, 61% from 2, 48% from 3 on 10.3 attempts per game. And this is with the most defensive attention he has ever received.
Absolutely.
He started getting the hard in, right? Chris and I talked about that after the game. That was a new thing of cross half court. Come on, here comes the double team. No screen, whatever. We're just getting the ball out of Ant's hands right away. And and he is finding a way to score 40 plus points or consistently in the 30s amidst the type of attention that he's getting. And I was talking with Jace about this a little bit of like, where is that coming from? And I think how is he getting the scoring despite them putting that double on him right away? And I think the way you would think about it is, all right, they put 2 on him right away. He gets off of it and the ball comes back to him. That is not really happening as much as I think you would think, right? It's Ant finding ways in the times that he's not getting doubled. It's Ant finding ways in transition more. It's Ant playing quicker that he's countering these things. It isn't so much the like get off it, swing back to him, attack. I will note that could be developed, and that would lead to even more efficient scoring. Ant is basically just bull in a china shop, running through whatever the coverage is, or finding a way to get through the room and score 30 plus points every single night. And I would take that to mean with greater learning and greater understanding that this could get even better. I mean, it's going to be hard to duplicate over the course of months, 38 points a game on 61% from 2 and nearly 50% from 3. I'm not saying that, but it could feel even better. Right now, he is just finding it where it comes. I did ask him about facing double teams, and I want to play that clip here as well. Sorry, just a second. Here we go.
2 on you right away when you cross in half court. I mean, a lot of time you get 2 on the ball with a ball screen. What's different about that?
Well, like honestly, it's just like me trying to be aggressive and always looking to score. It kind of like take my aggression away because it's like I'm trying to find out what to do. But Finchy did a great job of countering that with different plays and different sets.
So you're getting doubled a lot, but your scoring has not dropped.
No.
40-some tonight. It's happened in other games. Like, how are you finding those alternative, or what are those alternative ways?
We're trying to play quicker. Like if I come off the screen, go right away. If Dante sets me a peel, which like we're starting to do more and more, just attack the peel right away and then go and get to my spot. If I'm gonna pull up, if I'm gonna shoot a 3, I gotta get my shots off early because if I don't, they're gonna take the ball out of my hand and trap me.
What have you made of that, Britt?
Well, I think that's true. I also think one of the things you did mention a scenario is extended possession, second chances at the same possession, and I see him get some more open looks.
That Dante offensive rebound where he kicked it to him in the corner in the third quarter.
And just I think the other thing is that when he goes to the cup as much as he seems to be going in these particular instances, that does loosen up the double coming, because if he can break that double, then he's breaking down the defense, 5 on 3. And it's what's fascinating is he's getting 3.9 assists per game, which is like his lowest in 4 years. Yeah. And yet he's enabling the offense. He is, getting off the ball, enables the offense. I think what we have to see in order to make this thing work is Ann has to have at least one source of pressure be off him. And for example, why was there such a lane for him to get that rebound layup to tie the game in San Antonio? They were guarding against the 3, and they were going to make sure that Ant didn't beat them. There needs to be ways in which he has options where the team isn't selling out on him every single way. And if they are, there needs to be ways where I think one of the reasons Dante DiVincenzo right now has his best assist to turnover ratio of his career is because he's the beneficiary of that. I think that Jaden McDaniels is able to find more space for what he does. Nas, when he's on the court, the Wolves, again, I think need to lean into that kind of stuff. And I don't think I am maybe in the minority on this. I don't like the idea of turning Ant into the lead guard a la Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and just have somebody like Dante next to him and do this kind of stuff, because the NBA, there used to be rules against, zones. The traps have to be, the NBA is a lot more creative on defense than they used to be in terms of being able to move people around. And it's a lot more athletic in terms of the emphasis on springy wings than it used to be back in those old days. So I would like to see a little bit more pure point guard play. The question becomes, who can deliver it on this roster.
Can I ask you on that? Like,
yeah,
let's just do, it can be any player and it can be from any era. Like, what is the archetype of this point guard, this mythical creature that would come in and be like, this is what they need next to Ant and Randall? Like, in the context of the roster as is, obviously, if you were to make a trade, somebody be going out, but like, I can't picture this. I don't know, like, who is the player that you would like to have in that spot so Ant can be doing guard stuff, not the lead guard stuff that you
Tony
don't
Parker.
want. Okay, I like that. Yeah, elaborate.
Somebody who knows how to play with superstars, doesn't have to have the ball, but when he has the ball, he makes the right decisions, capable from mid-range, somewhat capable from outside. That may be a slight weakness. Really good at getting to the cup, pushes the pace, decent defender, somebody who basically checks a lot of boxes, but doesn't check many in neon, because he doesn't want to check them in neon. He wants to be a team floor general. He doesn't want to be Chris Paul. He doesn't want to be a guy that everybody says, oh, he's the best player on the team, or he's even the second or third best player on the team. He's a key cog who's unquestionably the point guard, but if he's not running the play that time, people don't go, oh, what happened? Somebody like that.
I love it. You know what's interesting about Tony Parker is he replaced Avery Johnson in San Antonio. And initially in his time in San Antonio, he was being asked to be Avery Johnson.
Right.
And he was like,
a big
I'm not Avery Johnson.
Guy. Right.
Yeah, like I'm not like that. In the beginning of his career, I've had the story told to me. It was like a bit of a push and pull there, especially between him and Pop, going back and forth between, Tony Parker wanting to play a little bit more like Rob Dillingham played at Kentucky and a little bit less like Avery Johnson. But over the course of a couple of years into his career, Tony Parker evolved into that perfect sort of fit. And it was something even greater, obviously, than Avery Johnson, but did check that Avery Johnson box. And I've thought about this I did not know you were going to say Tony Parker, but I've thought about this for Rob Dillingham, which is just, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that one of the things that looks like a tunnel and turns out to be a painted wall is the youth core. The youth core, the depth provided by the youth core. I got to tell you right now, Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham are actively harmful for this team at the moment. They are actively harmful. I mean, everybody has their reasons. Shannon clearly has a skill set that, when activated properly and able to be executed, is manna from heaven, And Dillingham, it goes without saying, high draft choice, huge investment, large expectations. He's got youth and size working against him right now. You have to be able to give him the reps to get past that. When you give him the reps, you are making it difficult for your team. It just, it's interesting, before he'd ever played an NBA game, and I did my annual thing with Finch, I asked, what do you expect to see before they made the Cat trade? He was going to be the backup point guard. He said, 1 out of every 3 games, it'll be good. 1 out of every 3 games, he'll be terrible. And 1 out of every 3 games, he'll be, hopefully kind of meh, And the idea is to leave him in when he's playing well, get him his minutes, get him out when he's not. And in the math thing, regard the situation, well, they're going through an abbreviated enactment of that scenario now. Is if Rob is playing well, he'll get 10 to 12 minutes. If Rob is playing badly, he'll get 4 to 6 minutes, and then otherwise it's situational.
Yeah.
And his net rating is bad. It's not as bad as Terrence Shannon Jr.'s, which is double digits, but it's not good. And right now, Jalen Clark should be the eighth man. It should not even be a debate. He consistently is good for the team, but he has the lowest ceiling of the three guys in terms of if you hit the jackpot with Dillingham or you hit the jackpot with Shannon, you are going to get something that is really good for this team the way it is currently constituted.
I would just like there to be a eighth man. I don't even care who it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, right I think Finch is kind of with you there. The problem is that he was expecting it to be Shannon.
Yeah, he was. Right. And then Shannon checked into the game for the first time 5 minutes into the second quarter. Like him and Rob is consistently not checking in until the second quarter.
Right.
You know, and then at that point, it just feels like, I don't know. I just have to imagine as a player, it's just disorienting.
The drop off is significant. And you could say it's, you know, in all of these situations, it's chicken or the egg. People who defend the player say the coach is using him in a way that doesn't get him a rhythm and maximize him. People who are on the coach's side, not the players, say, what do you expect the coach to do when he puts them in? And the team, you know, their lead goes from 7 to 2. And, you know, all of a sudden you got to, you know, right. And so it's a push and pull. I think what's interesting about Rob is there are glimpses of the type of thing that you really, you know, is he 21 now, 22? I think he's 21, right? And so 3 years from now, okay, well, 3 or 4 years from now, he's still young. And if he gets minutes, Finch's excuse now, and it's actually a pretty artful way to finesse this, is saying he's not playing a lot of minutes, but he's playing meaningful minutes for a really good team, et cetera, et cetera. All that true, but you know, the thing is not going up. The thing is, you know, and Shannon is not going up, and even Nas, you know, Nas obviously has shaken off some really bad, like first 8 games. We talked about it, you know, whether it has anything to do with family tragedy or just a bad start or coming in too light for the position he plays. I don't know what it is, but I do notice that, you know, when Nas is able to play his game, which is pace and space, and good things happen to him early, which seems to be he's become more of a confidence player this year. Yeah. He's good for you. He's, you know, he is what you need. But this team needs good bench play, and it's really been another one of those things. The way that they're trying to organize the point guard position, the way they're trying to sort out the bench points and the character remain, and not necessarily in that order, remain the 3 things I see that this team has to negotiate as they move forward.
Yeah, one last thing on, I guess, kind of ties in the last couple of things we've been talking about of the offense and Ant's scoring usage and the lack of presence from Rob Dillingham. It's just the assist column, you know, and you brought that up with Ant, and those assist numbers are way down. But as Finch brought up in his answer, we have a lot of assists. You know, the team is generating a lot of assists, even if Anthony Edwards isn't, Rob Dillingham, right? You know, isn't either. And Ant had 44 points and he only had 4 assists. I went and watched him before we started recording, and you know what the 3rd and 4th assist came? That last minute of overtime. Remember those Rudy dunks?
Yeah, right.
That's 2 of his 4 assists.
Right.
That was 2 of his 4 assists. But I I talked about this with Chris too. But to the reason that Finch brought up about the assist numbers of the team being high, and obviously Julius being a real source of that. Like, the assist thing is not a nit I'm ready to pick with Ant right now. Like, obviously, would it be nice if there was a little bit more direct assisting going on there? But if the team is having plenty of assists, if the offensive rating is 5th in the NBA, and Ant is individually scoring efficiently as he is, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll break it down even more than that. If I see Ant in the first quarter shooting with 18 on the clock and it's a contested shot,
sure,
and the score is like 9-7 or something, then I'm going to say, hey, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
When this team is down double digits to New Orleans in the second half, and Ant decides, all right, it's time for me to just score.
Right.
I got no problem with that. And all of a sudden, that double-digit lead is gone, and he's got 19 points in the quarter. I mean, if you're going to play hero ball, if you're heroic, then shut the fuck up. I mean, you can't say, hey, don't do that. Don't bring your team back from double digits when everybody's lying down. That's when you want your superstar to play that way. The point being, if your superstar has helped dig that hole, that's where you can criticize them. You can't criticize them for filling in the hole and getting everybody above ground again. And
which was the first New Orleans game to a T.
Exactly. And so I don't criticize Ant over New Orleans. He was one of the people who on defense kind of laid down a little bit. And I do think you might regard that as a leadership guy setting by example. But the guy played the last however many minutes and was needed to win in overtime against a 3-18 team. Blame the team and inclusively for the fact that you had to use your superstar to an exhaustive level to beat a patsy. But don't short the actual heroic effort it took to make that thing go in the win column anyway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, that's my I think that's just the right way to look at that.
Well, I'm complaining about this team. I'm not singling Ant out. One, because he's honest and he's a leader. And if you're an honest leader, that is part of your leadership. Some of it is what you show on the court. Some of it is what you say to the media publicly and to your teammates privately. And I've always regarded Ant as a very good leader in that regard. Has he always had some weaknesses on the court? Sure. But right now,
38, 5 and 5, 61 from 2, 48 from 3. Yeah.
Right.
That's right now. Okay. Last thing, the defense. This is the board quote from Finch. I'm going to play this. Ask Finch about the defense 20 games into this.
Yeah.
The defense has kind of progressed linearly. What do you think?
I mean, we've
gone into that.
I think thinking about it over the last few games and period of time, it's we kind of started the season a little bored. It's not something that you want to admit to, but a team that's had 2 deep runs, I think, just maybe started the season a little bit flat and bored, and just realizing we got to put the work in. It's going to be tough. The West is going to be brutal, and we just had to get back to playing better defense. I think that's really what it's come down to. So, there's been no adjustment or anything like that. It's just
I appreciate the honesty there too, Britt.
But it gives the lie to everything that happened preseason, and not only that, but when I asked him about the cupcakes and, the idea you're playing a lot of weak opponents, doesn't that kind of make it difficult for you to toughen up and play your best way? And of course, sure, the impolitic thing is to say we're playing a lot of bad teams because all those teams will use it as bulletin board material. But saying the team is bored is kind of the same thing. This schedule is beneath us is really what they're saying. Yeah. And he's right. And the team is right. The schedule is beneath them. But if you don't follow your own standards of how you want to act, you follow the standards of what is the minimum required to get a win, or what habits need to be ingrained so that they're not bad habits. Mm-hmm. They won games ingraining bad habits. That was my biggest complaint about this whole thing is, ball movement looked great. No deflections because the other team couldn't defend. No gap defense because they were slow to get in the gaps. You didn't need to get back in transition because they didn't have the wherewithal or the talent to burn you when you didn't get back. All those things were able to be whitewashed as like, okay, well, we're playing pretty good right now. We're 8-3 or whatever. We're moving right along. They've beaten 2 teams with winning records thus far. Part of that is they haven't played very many, and part of that is they're still below 500 when they do play those teams. Right. And so that you need to be able to immediately compete on an equal basis, at least with winning teams, and boredom will never get you there.
Right. One of those 2 wins against a winning team was the San Antonio game that you referenced, that you wrote about. And from a defensive lens, we haven't done a pod since then, you and I.
Sure.
I found that game fascinating because they went on a big run by changing who is on the floor, specifically by not playing Rudy Gobert the final 17 minutes of the game.
Right.
Which in the moment, as you and I were sitting next to each other at Target Center on Sunday, I said to you, I go, here, they're going with offense to win the game, because that is what we had become to know that move as.
And I'm going to interrupt you for just a minute. I hope it doesn't interrupt your thought.
No.
But in that 5 minutes of the third period where they took Rudy out, they gave up like 7 straight possessions of baskets and held their own because they were scoring on the other end. But Harper got in the lane 3 straight times for layups, and just crazy stuff. And yet he still didn't go back to Gobert.
Well, his adjustment for the fourth quarter in that game was zone,
right?
And
with
that was
McDaniels in the middle, right?
Yeah, that defensive adjustment. So again, in the conversation about the defense that started the season bored, in Finch's words, statistically started the season in the bottom 10.
Right.
The Reed Randall minutes were a segment on every single episode I did for the first 8 games of the season. But that, if we're looking for glass half full stuff or significant improvements, it is a heartbeat to the defense when Rudy is off the floor, which opens up optimistically an encouraging world where you don't need to have Rudy on the floor to be able to guard your opponent, and you now have your more juiced offensive lineups out there in that sort of way. I think we could look back at that game. I can picture us, in a playoff, we're in Houston or something, and in the first round, and the Wolves are playing them, and they win a game, and Rudy didn't play much in the game, and the Reed Randall minutes were great. And we point back to, you remember that game, November 30th or whatever it was, against the Spurs, and they found something here with their defense with Rudy off the floor, and turned it into a weapon, a lever that they could pull, because I don't think this team had that had that lever last season. And I'm not certain they do yet either, because I don't think zone is ever like an answer to a problem. Or Jason and I talked about that on Monday as he was praising the zone. I was like, cool. Yeah, the zone works. Zones are band-aids. Like zones are band-aids. They're not solutions, but I think that group is getting closer to finding solutions defensively, and certainly has performed better and found their way from a bottom 10 defense in the first 10 games of the season to, a top 10 one the last 10 games.
I think the two key pieces there are McDaniels and Clark.
Okay.
Obviously, everybody knows, just as everybody had the microscope on the Randall Nas front court, the microscope shifted to how it improved when you brought Clark next to McDaniels and kept McDaniels in for another possession.
Right.
And some of us, I'm sure Jace with you at some point in time, pointed out, he and I were both pissed off about it on Twitter, about when all of a sudden Shannon is getting those Clark rotations in that Randall Nas front court, and the team was laying eggs on defense again. It just, you need Jalen Clark on the floor when you have Nas Reed and Julius Randle on the floor, because the beauty of Clark is he helps your perimeter defense and your paint defense. That, only McDaniels and Clark really do that well, are able to, from the arc to the rim, defend at a quality level. I mean, Ant is capable of it. DDV occasionally can do it, but those guys are really good at it.
All
and
containment.
I thought one of the absolutely beautiful things about that Spurs game was, and I want to see this more. I don't know how it happens. It's one of my favorite things about this Wolves team. Jaden McDaniels as rim protector. And it's so much fun because he's not your classic center, and yet he does his share of never minds, and he does his shares of get that out of here. And he plays with an edge, and it seems to get, Ant and Dante. When Jaden is playing with an edge as a big man, it's a spark.
Right.
It is a catalyst, similar to what Clark does when he steals balls from a team getting, not even getting over half court, or, pilfering weak side, blind running into people and getting rebounds and stuff, and getting steals. Kinetic defense is always going to be one of my most favorite things about the NBA, and to have players on the roster that can do that. Jaden on ball is effective. Jaden in the paint can be kinetic, and Clark is kinetic all over the place, which is why it's so much fun. But leaning into that there's got to be a way to lean into that.
That's why my dream archetype of point guard includes them being a point guard who can guard the point of attack defensively. If it can be a guy in that Spurs matchup that you can put on De'Aaron Fox, so Jaden McDaniels doesn't have to guard him.
Right.
There's a lot of power in that. Or Shai Gilgeous. I mean, you go back 2 seasons ago, and when the Wolves would play the Thunder, who started the games on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? No, started the games. Mike Conley. Mike Conley used to guard the point of attack, and Jaden would guard Chet Holmgren, and he would then thus be a little bit more of a lane presence in that sort of way. And I see sometimes in some matchups where they don't put Jaden at the point of attack because they want what you want, right? Or Fitch does, the coaching staff does. They want more of that kinetic power of Jaden being off ball there. But there's a lot of opponents where I don't think that they can afford to do that with their starting lineup. Dante can't do that in the same way, at the point of attack defensively.
Right.
Ant can at times, but that comes with an energy cost.
I agree.
And then who else is going to be? You're not going to have Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert guard that. It has to be Jaden. So I would just add that in there in this dream hypothetical time machine, get a point guard who could do all those things, I would throw that nugget in there as well.
There is, I mean, John Krasinski and I were talking about who do you get as a point guard. There are some interesting options. The one he came up with that I really liked was Scottie Pippen Jr. from Memphis.
Yeah, he's like that.
I mean, that's a really nice prototype. You and I both like Carter, Devin Carter.
Javon.
Devon Carter, right. Yeah. There is a Devin Carter too, right? And he's not quite as
we
good.
Don't want him.
Kind of does the same. Right. The guy who was so good in Milwaukee is what I remember him best at. I mean, he's been other places too, I think. But
I've done that watching League Pass too, of being like, all right, here's a point guard. What about this guy? But they're all kind of like that, where they're bench guys.
But that's what we want. Yes. You don't want to break the bank. Huh?
All right. So then it's not a starter.
It can be a starter. See, that's the thing. I mean, Pippen has started for Memphis sometimes. Sure. Carter occasionally started for Milwaukee. It's just a different kind of placeholder than Mike Conley was. I mean, even in his best, Conley was, going to be the third or fourth option.
Yeah.
And if you're leaning into defense, I do think on ball obviously is important. Again, though, if I'm talking about Jaden McDaniels as rim protector, that works best next to Randall or Nas. It doesn't work as well next to Rudy. Rudy Gobert's specificity of role is going to increasingly be an issue. It's always been an issue wherever he's been. But as he gets older and as the game changes away from him a little bit, it's going to be more and more of an issue. And that is another one of the, it's not on my list of point guard, bench scoring, and character, but it's something where it's another way that this team doesn't immediately add up. Mm-hmm. And am I suggesting that they bench Rudy Gobert or trade Rudy Gobert? No, I think that removal of Rudy Gobert from the Wolves system will be a lot more traumatic than a lot of people realize right now. And so I'm not suggesting that. But I do think there may be flexes and fixes in that second unit where you get a little more time for Jaden to be playing as a legitimate big. Because among other things, I think it would be kind of cool to see, 2 or 3 years from now when Rudy's gone, even if Johan is come into his own. Jaden McDaniels is that rare player. And I think Alan and Jim Pete were talking about this on the broadcast. How often do you have a guy who's your wing stopper that suddenly becomes your rim protector?
All right. No,
it's a unique skill set.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we got time to unravel that trade deadline ball of yarn.
Believe me,
next couple of months. But
the trade machine fanatics are people I generally ignore as best I can. But I appreciate the passion. I don't believe in literally, wasting time dreaming up things that we probably don't know 75 reasons behind the scenes why that's never going to happen.
That's why I like to talk about like style and much. I think
exactly.
We did.
They're not going to get Tony Parker whether we want it or not.
I don't think so. All right, this is awesome, man. You guys can read Britt's column over at MinPost that he wrote earlier this week, and covering a lot of the things that we talked about here. A little bit more distilled. It's not going to take you an hour and 15 minutes to read that, as it would to listen to this. But yeah. Coming up next on the show, I'm recording this Thursday morning, so Chris and I will record another immediate reaction, kind of another one of those quicker episodes at the stadium this evening, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll get Kyle in on Friday, and then Britt, I will see you at Target Center on Saturday, and we'll see where this thing keeps moving. Appreciate you doing it.
Sure, my pleasure. Hey, I want to shout out to all the Somali basketball fans, Wolves fans. How how much we appreciate them
Absolutely.
being around and watching this team. I love the value they bring to our community.
Absolutely. I co-sign that. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's we got Wolves community here, and for everybody who is, spending time listening. I know this season has, when these seasons like this are up and down, and it ends up being this kind of like, we're like gritting our teeth. It's always a good reminder that there's so many more other things in the world right now to actually be gritting our teeth on. And as I've said many times before, my hope with this show is that this is a stupid distraction. And a healthy one for everybody. And yeah,
absolutely.
We love and appreciate y'all. Thank you for doing it, Britt. Until this evening with Chris Hine. He's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing like